Good morning. Another beautiful day here, and a beautiful day to know Jesus, to know the Father through Jesus. For God is good and He loves you. I have an interesting, but not new, piece of information here. It was written by Josephus. I heard someone reading it yesterday, and I said, "What is that?" That is some interesting insight. Found out Josephus, who lived nearly 2,000 years ago, was a historian, and he was writing about Nimrod, who lived 4,000 years ago. So this is some old stories, but it tells you that a lot of stuff is not really old. It's the same. Sorry, my shirt's all messed up there. It's the same over and over and over. Allow me to read this. It says, God also commanded them. It's talking about the people. This is shortly after the flood of Noah. God also commanded them to send colonies abroad for the thorough peopling of the earth, that they might not raise seditions among themselves, but might cultivate a great part of the earth and enjoy its fruits after a plentiful manner. But they were ill instructed that they did not obey God, for which reason they fell into calamities, and were made sensible by experience of what sin they had been guilty. For when they flourished with numerous youth, God admonished them again to send out colonies. If you remember in Genesis, it says He told them to go fill the earth, but instead they collected together and tried to make a community. But they, imagining the prosperity they enjoyed was not derived from the favor of God, but supposing that their own power was the proper cause of the plentiful condition they were in, they did not obey God. Nay, they added to this their disobedience to the divine will, the suspicion that they were therefore ordered to send out separate colonies, that being divided asunder they might more easily be oppressed. So this gives us a little insight, at least to what Josephus believed was going on, was that they refused to separate and go fill the earth because they thought if they banded together that God couldn't oppress them. They had a false opinion, a false understanding of the Most High. Obviously, they were taught that. Who do you suppose would be teaching false things about God? It goes even further back, another 2,000 years, to the garden with the serpent. He says, hath God said. That is the old story. He says, God's out to oppress you. Everything the good that comes is because you're tough and you're doing a great job. Don't give any honor to God. That's what the enemy says. The reality is that we receive blessings from God. And when people look around and they say, well, this guy's disobeying and he's still blessed, God already addressed that. It says He sends His rain on the just and on the unjust. God does good things. Now judgment comes to those who do wickedly. It is a guarantee, I'll put it that way. It's a guarantee that judgment will come eventually. God is trying to get good things to us. He's already giving us good things. All we got to do is listen. Let me continue, lest I get too long here. He goes on to say, now it was Nimrod. Now we know Nimrod was involved because it says that Nimrod's first kingdom was Babel, and that they called that when they built the Tower of Babel, they called the city. They built the tower, but they called it Babel. So this was Nimrod involved. It was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, a bold man and of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe it to God, as if it was through His means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence upon His power, upon the government's power. Sounds familiar? We would read it in history books, and we've seen it in our own lives. He uses a gradual change to tyranny, a gradual change to get you to rely upon a corporate system, upon a larger government, upon a one world government that will guarantee, in air quotes, your prosperity, your freedom, your happiness. Just don't rely upon God. Don't rely upon individual accountability or individual responsibility or individual relationship with the living creator of everything. There's one you can rely on. Nimrod also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. For that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod, and to esteem it a piece of cowardice to submit to God. And they built a tower, neither sparing any pain, nor being in any degree negligent about the work. And by reason of the multitude of hands employed in it, it grew very high, sooner than anyone could expect. But the thickness of it was so great, and it was so strongly built, that thereby its great height seemed upon the view to be less than it really was. So it was like a mountain, in a sense. It was built of burnt brick, cemented together with mortar made with bitumen, that it might not be liable to admit water. When God saw that they acted so madly, he did not resolve to destroy them utterly, since they were not growing wiser by the destruction of the former sinners, but he caused a tumult among them by producing diverse languages, that they should not be able to understand one another. And then it led to them being confused in the language, and they separated because they couldn't understand one another. So Nimrod created disorder, said, let's rely upon our own strength. And he created fear, saying God is out to destroy us. There's some old stories that come round and round. And reading the history gives us insight so that we don't fall into some of those old traps and those old tales again. Just a little interesting bit for you.